In the article, The Applicability of Porter's Generic Strategies to Pure Online Firms, and this is by Suleiman et al., he and his collaborators look at Amazon and eBay and Google to see if we can see the strategies of Porter's kind of coming out in what they do, and if these are adding ROA, high return on equity, high margins, high operating profits, seeing how applicable Porter's theories are to a purely online organization. Now, I was doing my MBA before Porter ever wrote What is Strategy in 1996. And back then, we were still throwing rocks and sticks at each other, and the people who didn't throw rocks and sticks at you were your customers. Or were your profitable customers. It's, of course, I'm joking, but these things were being created back when I was doing my MBA, and they were, of course, for brick and mortar companies. In other words, they were for physical companies. You didn't buy a book online. You went down to Barnes and Noble. You went, now I can't even think of another bookstore that we would go to. Anyway, you went to a bookstore. When you wanted to research something, you went to Encyclopedia Britannica, and that was it. That was the internet physically. And so now that this has changed, can we still in MBA courses, for example, can we still use Porter's generic strategies to define and to help us understand making strategies for purely online organizations? And, it's spoiler alert, they say, well, yes, you can. And so they've taken these three prominent companies. I'd just like to say a few things about that. I just wonder, and for those of you, cost leadership is really cranking down the costs and making sure that we're delivering something at the very lowest cost to us so that, we can make a good profit on it. And differentiation is finding that sort of different market and really going for that market. And then you have focus, so you have cost focus and cost differentiation. Focus differentiation. And the focus part is you're really focusing down, whether it's your cost leadership or differentiation, you're really focusing down on a very small set of customers, a very small set of the market. Your products are seen as unique and differentiated and perhaps innovative. Okay, so if those are the typical kinds of generic strategies, then, can we apply those to purely online forms? And I just think that what I know about how online works, how purely online companies work, it seems to me that everything is focus. So if you're going to be a focus cost leadership, fine, but you're going to be focused. There's no sort of cost leadership out there. I think the market is maybe now too mature for that. If you look at how Google sells ads, you click and a page is going to come up, and then the ads are going to load onto it. And in the time that you clicked on that page, in microseconds, there is an auction for that section and your eyeball, the client's eyeball. So these eyeballs are coming up. This kind of profile is coming up. Who wants this banner the most? There's an auction for it in just microseconds, and dunk, something comes up, and you find out that that conversation that you had about your wife just announcing that she's pregnant was also overheard by Google or Amazon, and all of a sudden there's an ad for diapers or an ad for any number of things associated with that, and you think, oh, that's really creepy. But that's how directed it is. That's how focused it is. And so it seems to me, aren't we all, when we're going online, isn't everything focused? Especially for the successful firms. My little YouTube web pages, they aren't focused. They don't grow they grow a little bit, but it's sort of word of mouth, in sort of the old way. But these companies and are incredibly sophisticated. And not just the companies, individual TikTokers are incredibly sophisticated in what kinds of hashtags they use and what kinds of titles they put on their videos. So it seems to me that half of Porter's model, so the top half of Porter's model, may not really be relevant to purely online organizations. So these nice people in the article assert that Amazon shows that organization is implementing a cost leadership strategy, and you see this in very high return on assets, and they have good operating efficiency, and this is responsible for their success. When it comes to eBay and Google, they have high and increasingly high return on assets. And because of this increasing return on assets, they're saying, well, that's a differentiation strategy. But here I have another big question, because in the past, when we were throwing sticks and stones at each other, it was pretty clear which companies were low-cost strategies. You could see the low cost, and maybe it was in their location, or maybe it was in their packaging, some kind of presentation or reliability of their product once you had it in your hands. But now that these firms, especially the big firms, are so good at that interface online, I don't think there's a difference between how good the interface of eBay or Google or Amazon is. And you could add to that Facebook, you could add to that YouTube, you could add to that, a number of different Microsoft. So how do we detect what is low cost? How do we detect those things other than just the price? Now, if you go off to Alibaba and you see, well, I can buy body armor and luxury watches for $5. Of course, this is a cost focus. Yeah, this is pretty obvious. But the interface is pretty slick and it's pretty easy to do. And I just wonder, to what extent are we as customers actually experiencing low cost? Yeah? That our eyes are directed to certain things, and we can't see if this product is necessarily everywhere. I know we can go online and we can compare things, but with Google sort of in charge of most of this, are we really able to compare plane tickets? Are we really able to compare prices of body armor or watches? And of course you can, but I just wonder to what extent this is really relevant. To what extent do we experience low-cost providers as low cost? Now, Suleiman and his friends say, well, the difference between low cost would be just a standardized product, and differentiated is something that you can customize, for example. Oh, okay. So you can buy a car online and plop, there you go, here's the car online. Or you can buy a Tesla car online and you can, modify it and customize it, and you can go from something that's a pretty standard product to something that is, pretty amazing. Okay, so maybe this is how this is manifesting itself online. And Suleiman et al. End their article by saying, well, this article proposes that the cost leadership strategy is able to generate greater performance for pure online firms. However, since the internet offers online firms the possibility of cutting costs down as well as prices, a differentiation strategy can be more worthwhile and sustainable for pure online firms. And maybe this is indicating that not only does the top half of the model seem to be dissipating, but the cost leadership aspect is as well. When you look at the advantages you have from being online and I bring in artificial intelligence again, and isn't everybody sort of moving toward a different? This is something that was brought, I don't know, 20 years ago in the Harvard Business Review about mass customization. Are we finally in the mass customization area, which is low-cost differentiation for everyone? Probably not. But if we're trying to stick with Porter's model, it seems that it's a little bit wobbly in the face of this dynamic online environment that we're seeing and we're seeing evolve before our eyes that fast. So the weakness here is we've only looked at 3 companies. They're all successful. And I think for how much can we really parse out of this and take along with us? Maybe the one thing is that using Porter's generic strategies is not a bad place to start the conversation. As Warren Buffett said, data doesn't tell you what to think, it gives you something to think about. And maybe Porter's generic strategies are the right things to think about, whether you're bricks and mortar, clicks and bricks, or purely online.